Welcome to the Irish NFL Show's AFC East preview show in association with our partner QuinnBet. Remember, by the way, to check out all our other divisional previews, which you can get wherever you find your podcasts. And please do like and subscribe on whichever is your favoured platform. Well, the training camps are underway. The hype around the rookies and free agents arriving at their new teams is starting to build. Off-season hard knocks on the Giants is whetting all our appetites for September. But in the meantime, we're going to take a look at the AFC East because the East sent two teams, the Bills and the Dolphins, to the playoffs. The Chiefs, incidentally, accounted for both of those teams on their own Super Bowl run. The Jets, of course, had a lost season thanks to Aaron Rodgers' snapped Achilles tendon in Week 1. And the Patriots, so long the beast in the East, were bottom of the pile last year. We'll get to Shane on that one in particular before we wrap this evening. But we'll take it from the top, Noel, with the Buffalo Bills, who went 11-6 last year, finished with a 5-game winning streak to take the division. Didn't quite go to plan in the playoffs. They would certainly have expected, having finally gotten the Chiefs at home, which is what they wanted, that they'd take care of business, but that is not the way it happened. How do we rate the Chiefs? How do we rate the Bills going into this season, Noel? Because you're looking at the CV and you're looking at a strong body of work in terms of consistently finishing, at the top of the division, 4 AFC East titles in a row now, double-digit wins. And yet it hasn't happened for them in the playoffs. Now, do we overweight on the playoff disappointment, or do we say this team is consistently a winning machine? Why should we doubt Sean McDermott at this stage? He's done it year in and year out.
Yeah, for me, it's the latter there. I mean, look, this team knows how to win games. Obviously, you mentioned Sean McDermott there has done a great job bringing the team along, but you look at the quarterback and it's the way it is in the NFL. If you have this superstar quarterback, then everything else is really possible through them. And we see what Josh Allen does. I think at times they've just been unlucky to run up against, Pat Mahomes, who may be the best quarterback of his generation and arguably could go on to be the best quarterback. And sometimes you can be a good team and just run up against someone better who's kind of on that same time frame as you. But I mean, I think this Bills team is a good team. This season now, there's been a bit of change. We've seen they had a bit of cap issue going on. So we've seen a number of players go out. Obviously, Stephon Diggs was traded, who was a big target for Josh Allen. So I find this team fascinating now this year because I still think they're a good team, but I don't know how good they're going to be. I still think they will probably battle it out for this division title, but I don't know if there's been too many extensive changes or if maybe they've refreshed. Because obviously the really kind of position group I look at now, the wide receiving group has changed a lot. Obviously now they bring in Keane Coleman as their number 1 draft pick. Khalil Shakir then will get a kind of a bigger role probably, and we see Curtis Samuel has come in. And these are players who maybe you look at them and they don't fill you with fear. But then I mentioned Josh Allen, and maybe he can make these young kind of exciting wide receivers that little bit better. Obviously they have a new offensive coordinator who came in week 11 last year in Joe Brady and kind of changed things about as well. Because as you mentioned, they had a good winning streak toward the end of the season, but they were 5-5. And at times last season, people were wondering, God, was this the year the Bills were going to fall off a bit? Will they not make it? Then they put that run together. So for me, this season is going to be fascinating now to see how all of these changes take effect. Are they going to be a positive? Is it a refresh for the team, or is it going to take that step back? But again, as I say, when you have Josh Allen in there and he's able to make things happen, they start off in a plus for me anyway with that, and then we'll just kind of see where it goes from there.
In some ways, Kieran, the constant questioning of the Bills kind of surprises me because, as we were saying at the outset there, they do have this really strong CV, as they showed on that 5-game winning streak towards the end of the season. Like, when the going gets tough, the Bills do front up. Like, they had an awful lot to do to win that division last year. Dolphins very much in the catbird seat, and they couldn't get it done. The Bills showed them what it's all about. Now, again, they got it handed to them at home by the Chiefs, which they're not going to be happy about. But each year for the last couple of years, it's been, I'm not so sure that maybe this is the year the Bills fall off, but that they haven't, to give them their credit. They're a really well-coached team. They have the superstar quarterback. There'll be no Stephon Diggs, and that's the big question mark this year. But surely they've done enough at this stage that we should give them a little bit more credit.
Yeah, I mean, in a division like the East, they're always going to be one of the top teams in there. I have a couple of concerns about the Bills. It really started with Week 1 last year when they found a way to lose that game when Rodgers went down. That there's no way they should have lost that game. They started the season 3-3, and then when it got to time to get rid of Dorsey, they got that little shot of of inspiration, bringing in Brady, and that's when they finished the season 6-1. They didn't really wow me last year, and that was with a full complement of Diggs and Gabe Davis. Now they've lost those two. They've also lost Poyer on defense, so they've lost some key elements. And we always talk in the NFL about windows. Teams are getting these 1 or 2 years where they got everybody together. I mean, we can argue that Diggs was, starting to on the downturn, but I don't know. I have my doubts this year. I think they'll be okay. They'll do enough to get into the playoffs. They'll back end in, just in the nature of the division. But I think that window has started to close, and I fear for McDermott. Actually, I think one of the reasons they brought Brady in was as the kind of the new head coach. And there was a lot of talk last year about McDermott. Especially when Dorsey went out the door. Is McDermott going to join him? Has he lost the team? He made some questionable comments to players in reference to 9/11 and various things like that. So he was skating on thin ice around that Dorsey time. Dorsey was a sacrificial lamb, as he usually is. And when they brought Brady in, they got that little jolt, that little kind of inspiration, and they finished strong. And I just think there were signs already last year that it was maybe a little starting the downslide a little bit. Yeah, they brought in Keon Coleman, and we talked about Curtis Samuel, but Mac Hollins as a wide receiver 3. I don't know if that's going to work when it comes to playoff time. I don't think they're going to have much trouble in the division. I think they'll be okay. I think they'll just scrape in with a wild card spot. But I really think that the window is closed, and are they going to regret, not making hay while the sun shone up there in snowy Buffalo the last couple of years? And that image of Stephon Diggs watching the Chiefs celebrate as the confetti flew down. I just think that they've missed that window, and I think that they've missed that opportunity. I think it's going to be a season of upheaval in the offseason next year. I don't think McDermott will be there after this. So long story short, Bills will be okay. They're going to rely on that muscle memory, and Josh Allen's probably going to throw 4,500 yards, probably 30 touchdowns, maybe 15 picks or so. It's just classic Josh Allen stuff. But I think it's going to be a difficult one later on in the season. I think they're going to have some big questions to ask as they back into the playoffs.
Shane, offensive coordinator roulette notwithstanding, the Bills finished top 10 and actually top 5 in some of the most meaningful statistical categories offensively last season. Like they did put up big numbers. They had the win-loss total to show for it as well, particularly because they stormed away in the second half of the season, as we said, just as the doubts were building. It's the defense really where the Von Miller swing didn't pan out for them. That's where you probably need to see the improvements, I would argue. Like whatever a full season of Joe Brady as offensive coordinator will do, and everybody's making the right noises, and Josh Allen saying he's looking forward to it, and it's great to have somebody new and all that jazz. But actually, it's probably more the defensive side of the equation that would concern me heading into the season, and that to me is the winning and losing of playoff games.
And it's the defensive side of the ball. When we were talking earlier about the fact that they've had a bit of a clear out when it comes to trying to clear up cap space, it's the defensive side of the ball where they've lost a good chunk of that talent. And, we could talk all day about Josh Allen, the fact that Dalvin Cook is going to be a key player as running back for the Bills going into the season. He's somebody to watch in. But from the defensive point of view, are you confident in the Bills to be strong enough to deal with the very tough schedule that they have? I mean, across the season, they have to play against the Dolphins twice, the Jets twice. They have to play at home to San Francisco, away to the Los Angeles Rams, away to the Lions, at home to the Chiefs. There's away to the Ravens in the earlier part of the season. All while at the same time, the offensive side of the Josh Allen is getting used to a brand new core of wide receivers. So you can't even rely on that to make up for it in the early part of the season. So I really think there's quite a lot of personnel turnover here in Buffalo to make you think. I'm not quite sure whether this is the year where they're going to maintain that position on top of the leaderboard. Again, two things saved them last year. The fact that they have the Dolphins number consistently really helped them out last year, obviously in the context of the division, but also in the context of building momentum in one of their two big purple patches last year. And secondly, the fact that once we hit into November, something switched in their brains, and the removal of Ken Dorsey was probably a big part of that. That made them perform particularly well on both offensive and defensive side of the ball. But I mean, when you're relying on a couple of rookies to I think Germany's going to be relying on like a second round pick called Bishop at free safety. After losing, Leonard Floyd and Tre'Davious White and Dane Jackson and a couple of other guys as well. That's a big talent changeover to try and deal with, considering that the Bills have set the standard as a couple of years as being one of the top teams in the AFC. When we talk about the AFC being the incredibly tough challenge that it is, the Bills have always been top of that conversation. They have the incredibly tough schedule that comes with that. But when you're facing against a division which is going to have the aerial offense of the speedy Dolphins wide receivers, and if I'm going to go back to the matchups between the Dolphins and the Bills and how important that is. If the Bills lose both of those games, that's their season done. We can look at other games where they might be able to get a few wins, get a few losses, find a way to improve their wide receiver core. Josh Allen is going to do crazy things and find ways to pull games out of the bag, and their defense, we hope, will find a way to find their feet going into the season, because I think the first 4 games of defense are going to really struggle. If they lose those 2 games to the Dolphins, though, and the first one is on week 2, that is crucial in just killing the momentum and killing any hopes that the Bills have of top in the division. And then they're looking at potentially a playoffs where they're going to be a 6th or a 7th seed if they even make the playoffs in the first place. So I agree, Conor. I think like the defensive side of the ball is somewhere where there really are a lot of question marks in Buffalo, and it's just a side effect, I suppose, of having to get rid of so many players during free agency because of the massive cap hit that the Bills had going into the season. The Dolphins had to do something similar, but they didn't probably lose quite as much talent. The Bills are working with a completely new set of faces on the defensive side of the ball. That's going to take a while to kick into gear, if it ever is. And I think that's a really big problem. All the focus and all the talk from Buffalo people will be on Josh Allen and how the offense takes over. Doesn't matter if you can score 21 points, though, if you're going to concede 30. That's going to be a big problem for the Bills heading into this season.
Kieran,